13th, 2020. As most of you know from posting the agenda, we were in executive session earlier, and so we are just coming back out of that. So at this time, I would ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do I have a motion following our executive session?
Chair Brumley, I'll make a motion to grant the appeal of student A.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, next on the agenda is Board of Trustee comments. I don't have anything scheduled, so in light of that, I'm going to move on to our next agenda item, which is I'm excited to hear and see from our high school student body reports. Looks like first off will be Venture. It looks like we're doing it on video.
Venture High School started our year off on August 25th with an open house barbecue for all students, families, and anyone interested in attending our school this year. Students received a passport that guided them through various stations so they could get to know the staff, the school, and what Venture is all about. At the end of their tour, they turned in their passport for a chance to win a gift basket. This year's winners were Savannah Leach, Kobe Johnson, and Jason F. On September 1st, all of the new Venture students attended an orientation where they were guided through 9 different hands-on stations, including introductions to the CTE pathways, mastery-based learning, some of the available activities, school expectations, 21st century advisory, and available resources. Before school started, our teachers met with Mike Nelson to learn about Zello and started brainstorming ideas on how they could use it in their advisories and curriculum to help guide students on the district's new Portrait of a Graduate program to help ensure that every student will graduate equipped with the knowledge, skills, and dispositions needed to pursue their future. Coming up next month, an introduction to our Venture High School's new mission statement and more happenings in our little corner of the district.
All right, well, thank you very much, Venture High School. Next up, it looks like we'll have Lake City High School.
Good evening, esteemed board chair, honorable trustees, Superintendent Hawker, and district administration. My name is Caden Stone, and I'm the ASB president at Lake City High School. We're off to a great start this year at Lake City. We had our annual student check-in at Lake City on August 23rd and 24th, which was very successful. Our freshman class is huge, and we're looking forward to getting them implemented into our school spirit. Our student council had our annual summer retreat 3 weeks before school started to come together as a team and start planning homecoming. Also, myself and fellow Lake City senior Ainsley Brigham had the amazing opportunity to speak with KXLY News on the first day of school about our perspective and hopes for this new school year. In addition, Lake City is working hard to give our students a running start into their post-secondary education. Seniors enrolled in college prep classes will be going through the application process soon, as well as learning about life skills, money management, and schedule making, and so much more, to ensure success at the next level of education and life. Lake City is also very excited to announce this year's homecoming festivities started today. We began our Spirit Days today and will be continuing them for the remainder of the week to give all our students the opportunity to dress up and get pumped for the big weekend. Our pep assembly will be this Friday at 12:45 in our football stadium. We look forward to safely gathering our students all together for the first time in almost 2 years. Our parade will be downtown on Sherman Avenue on September 17th starting at 4:00 p.m. This year our homecoming theme is an outer space theme named Out of This World. Our parade grand marshals will be Lake City and community legends Joe Partington and Darlene Schreiner. Our homecoming dance will be on Saturday, September 18th at 7 p.m. We would like to invite the school board and the community to attend the parade and game. We're looking forward to showing our school pride in beating Moses Lake on the football field. We have a lot of big things coming up this fall. We have class meetings and our annual Senior Start event coming up on September 24th, where our seniors will gather and play fun color war and slip and slide games. Our Navy Blues choir group also has their annual retreat coming up September 25th. Also, we have many clubs and activities such as GSA, Hope Club, Drama, and many more starting up this month. We are very excited again for our students to be able to get involved with these programs again. Finally, all of our staff and students would like to thank Superintendent Hawker, Assistant Superintendent Morrison, and our Secondary Director, Assistant Superintendent Libby Barrett, for coming to support us at Lake City High School on Friday. Joining them was our Curriculum Director, Katie Grutman. We suffered the tragic loss of one of our 10th grade students, and we really appreciated your time and compassion. We would especially like to thank our LCHS counselors and school psych, Chelsea Ferguson, for all their hard work throughout the day Friday. Our counselors are the best. It meant so much to us that Katie Kiner, Director of Federal Programs, made sure that we had plenty of district crisis team support for our students who were profoundly affected by this loss. Thank you, Kate and team. We truly appreciate all of the support and well wishes. Thank you for the opportunity to come speak with you tonight, and we'll see you guys again next month. Go T-Wolves.
Oh, that was great. Thank you, Lake City. And I really like the mascots on either side of the desk. All right. Last but certainly not least, Coeur d'Alene High School.
Good evening, Board Chair, Honorable Trustees, Superintendent Hawker, District Administration, and valued community members. My name is Maya Reitz, and I'm Coeur d'Alene High School's ASB President. Also joining me tonight will be Ellie Morsrow, ASB Vice President, Austin Smith, ASB Treasurer, and Gracie Schauer, ASB Secretary. This year, we as a Student Council hope to inspire a culture of kindness and school spirit. Now, I'm going to pass you over to Ellie Morsrow, who's going to talk about our first event of the year.
Hi, my name is Ellie Morsrow, and I'm Coeur d'Alene High School's ASB Vice President. This past Friday, we were able to hold our first event of the year, Senior Start. We were fortunate enough to have boosters donate food so that we could have volunteers barbecue hamburgers and we could provide lunch for every single senior. We had many volunteers that made the event run very smoothly. Seniors got to enjoy a blow-up obstacle course provided by the National Guard, along with Curtis Orthodontics snow cone truck, the annual class powder paint picture, a color war, and a slip and slide with shaving cream. The seniors really loved this event, and we're very thankful we got to put it on. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gracie Schauer. I am the ASB Secretary at Coeur d'Alene High School, and today I'm going to be talking about some of our upcoming events and activities that we have going on. Monday, September 13th, we have our Freshman Connection Freshman Orientation, where ASB and our Student Council officers are going to take the freshman class, introduce ourselves to them, answer any questions they might have, and then also introduce them to some of our Viking cheers. And then September 16th, this upcoming Thursday, we have our Welcome Back Assembly, where ASB will introduce themselves, and then Mr. Randalls as our new principal, and we will do roll call for each of the classes, and then again, just answer any questions anyone might have about the upcoming school year.
Good evening, my name is Austin Smith. I'm the ASB Treasurer here at CHS. I'd like to take a moment this evening to thank the Viking boosters for all of their miraculous support that they've put in this school year, not only in supporting Student Council, but also supporting every single one of the activities that we offer here at CHS. So, from everyone in Student Council, thank you.
Thank you for letting us present tonight. We appreciate your time and look forward to working with you this year.
Thank you to Coeur d'Alene High School. And in my haste to get this meeting going, I totally forgot to introduce everybody up here. So my apologies. Not that you probably all don't know who we are at this point in time, but to my far right is our esteemed clerk of the board, Lynn Town. To my immediate right, Dr. Sean Hawker, our superintendent. To my far left is Tambra Pickford, trustee. To her right, 3 left, Lisa May, trustee. 2 to my left is Casey Morrisrow, trustee, and to my immediate left is Rebecca Smith, vice chair, and I am Jennifer Brumley, chair of the board. So my apologies for not doing that right out of the chute. That then leads us to our Sag Leadership Report. Austin.
Did I get the mic? Oh, I got it to work. Let's go. Okay. Sorry, long-running battle on that one. I think I finally claimed victory. I'm here on behalf of the Student Advisory Group to inform you about our activities that's going on right now. Although it is the first week of school, so there's not many activities to inform you on, unfortunately. As you, I'm sure all know, our bylaws were passed by the board last August, and we were very, very thankful for that. It took a lot of time and effort, and we're very appreciative of all the support that you've given us. I'd like to take a moment to remind anyone and everyone of who our Student Advisory Group leadership is. The chair of SAG is Ainsley Brigham, who is unfortunately unable to come to this meeting. My name is Austin Smith. I'm the vice chair of the SAG, and then also unable to come to this meeting is Dylan Jones, third chair. We're all just extremely excited to get back into things. We're starting to plan meetings already, but unfortunately there's not really many new activities that we've held in the first week of school.
All right, well, thank you very much, Austin. Okay, that leads us into the next section of our meeting, which is public comment. Looks like we have some folks signed up. I just want to, you guys have heard the spiel if you've been here before, but I want to remind the public that while this is a meeting of the Board of Trustees that takes place in public, it's not a meeting with the public. It is a meeting of the board to conduct district business. The board does allow some limited public comment on district-related items. Those wishing to address the board during this public comment period are limited to one comment not to exceed 3 minutes. At the designated time, you will be called to the podium. Please state your name and address or city of residence. If you have additional comments that you would like to be presented to the board, you may provide those comments in writing to the clerk of the board, who will ensure that the board members receive this additional commentary. Please keep in mind that board members will not respond to public comment. If I determine that an individual statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, or repetitive, I may terminate that speaker's privilege to address the board. And that's what you usually have me say or hear from the chair, but I want to add a couple other things this evening. I will time it because I don't know, while I only have about 8, it looks like. I don't know if there's another list in the back, and so I will time that 3 minutes and just let you know when that's up. I also would ask that those of us in the audience would not sneer, would not jeer, and would not cheer. I'm just simply asking for a neutral audience this evening that will just hear, whether it's your public comment folks, whether it's myself, whether it's Vice Chair Smith. Any comments that are made tonight, I would just ask that everyone just remain quiet and listen. I don't want to censor anyone. I don't want to keep anybody from having their opportunity to comment this evening, but I do want to keep the meeting flowing. I don't want to have interruptions, and I just want everybody to be able to be heard that wants to be heard this evening, including each of the trustees this evening and whatever comments they may have. Just let us each speak, and we'll know your support quietly. Okay. And so with that, it looks like my first speaker this afternoon, I apologize, Dawn Antrim. Did I say your last name right? Did I ruin it?
My name is Dawn Antrim. I'm from Coeur d'Alene. I was at the mall and Ross and Walmart and the fair this weekend, and 98% of the people we've seen did not wear a mask. And it made me think of the KHQ fear-driven article that was not about us, all of us in here that don't wear masks. It was about our kids. And that could have included all of you, because I'm sure all of you do not wear a mask everywhere you go. But it included just our kids, specifically Coeur d'Alene School District. The article went on to say how higher vaccinated areas have higher COVID hospitalizations, like Washington and Oregon. I don't think anyone needs a doctorate to figure out the correlation between higher vaccine rates and higher hospitalizations and COVID spread, but I digress. And for some reason, no one talks about natural immunity. To quote World Health Organization's website, vaccination uses your body's natural defenses to build resistance to specific infections and make your immune system stronger. Vaccines train your immune system to create antibodies, just as it does when it's exposed to a disease. My whole family has natural antibodies. I bet you most of you in here have natural antibodies, and I know most of the school and the staff has natural antibodies, but we don't talk about that. Whoever ordered this hit piece against our kids should be ashamed of themselves for putting that responsibility on our children. How much stress are our kids under trying to navigate childhood and teen years and having this mask, unmasked, vaccinated, unvaccinated crap thrown at them? If you kids don't wear your mask, I'm going to shut down your school. If you don't wear a mask, you're responsible for killing hundreds of people in the community. I don't care what kind of mental toll it takes on you. I don't care if you have a medical issue where you can't wear one. And I don't care if you've had trauma in your life that causes you anguish when you put it on. It's about everyone else's health, not yours. And it's not about your feelings, right? Is that what this is about? Why? Oh, wait. Now let's talk about the real pandemic. CDC Director Robert Redfield remarked that there has been another cost that we've seen, particularly in high schools. We are seeing, sadly, far greater suicides now than we are deaths from COVID. Per PubMed, suicides are 40% higher last winter than the winter before. Why are we not talking about that here? Why is that not on the agenda? How many suicides this last year and a half? Or attempted? Or admittance to KBH? What about the little boy in that last week that lost his life from suicide? What about that national crisis? Are the extremely conservative against mask mandates? Yes, because we care about the lives of our kids. It's a fact we have lost more kids to suicide than to COVID. Jen, you've brought that up. Kids cannot deal with isolation, and I don't care what you professional opinions are, masks isolate kids.
Dawn,
I saw that firsthand.
That's 3 minutes.
Just, I'll go fast. So instead of talking about what is killing our kids, we're talking about how our kids are responsible for overloading the hospitals, putting more pressure on, more guilt, more stress on top of everything else that have been going on. And now we're here talking about muzzling them up again, isolating them again. I want to read part of the GoFundMe created for Deacon, the young man who tragically took his own life. Deacon started to have some anger issues in the last 11 months, as so many young people have experienced lately, and not being talked about or addressed as it should be. So his parents got him into therapy, hoping this would help him work through his feelings. They worked to get to the school and law enforcement involved in trying to help as well, but nothing was enough to stop him from taking his own life in an impulsive, emotional moment. Now he is gone, and his loved ones are left to pick up the pieces. I can only speculate who brought up this story to KHQ, pitting children and parents against health care. Probably the same people who think the unvaccinated and unmasked don't deserve treatment and don't deserve to live. These people need fired from their jobs. And the crap that you guys are doing to your kids, our kids, that blood is on your hands. Offended? I hope so, because you recognize yourself as part of the problem.
Okay, next is Laura Van Voor. I'm going to let you say her last
Laura
name.
Van Voorhees.
Thank you.
This current board, have recently approved the Marxist social, can you hear me? Is this on? Okay. Marxist social engineering and indoctrination scheme, which is called Portrait of a Graduate. It outlines who we want our students to become. That's a quote. The social emotional learning, SEL, and equity frameworks use language with deceptive meanings. To the untrained eye, which is what you were hoping, I'm sure, that you parents would remain, they sound like you're doing the children a favor by making sure they will, quote, internalize and be competent in the 6 C's: content knowledge, communication, creativity, critical thinking, collaboration. These terms, parents, do not mean what you think. They all have double meanings. I have a handout for all of you that will explain it. Some of you already have that. Social emotional learning is the Trojan horse which ushers in equity, diversity, and inclusion. which is critical race theory practiced. Scott Maben responded saying some months ago now that we're not teaching critical race theory in Coeur d'Alene School District. No, you're not teaching the theory. You are practicing it, though, in the form of equity, inclusion, and diversity. There is and this is how I got proof. I got my perspectives. You look and see if your kids have this. This is English language, supposedly. ELA curriculum is the primary example of globalist-minded SEL equity integration. One of its authors for this whole program, 6 through 12 education, is Ernest Morrell. Ernest Morrell, in other writings, cites Gloria Ladson Billings, communist, Goldie Muhammad, communist, and most notably, the very influential Paulo Freire. This is one of the very most influential books, and I see, knowing what this says, I see it completely infused in this and probably every other bit of curriculum that this board has approved. Let's see. My perspectives over you provide
Laura,
some useful...
you're at 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll be quick. They provide students with the opportunity to develop insights and features processing to craft the language. The language and relationships are the most important thing to get into the kids' heads, to do the social engineering so they can introduce the equity framework. There are other things I could cite, but I have this to hand out. But one thing I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't point out is our effective change agent, Dr. Hawker. I am curious why in your Coeur d'Alene profile you did not include your LinkedIn account information that states, as the superintendent CEO, I offer a wealth of community relations and program operations expertise that supports and encourages innovation, equity, and diversity. And he makes tough decisions, stays firm to the mission, initiates and streamlines best practices, which all comes from there, best practices that will benefit the organization. You are a recent graduate, 2020, of USC Urban Superintendent's Academy, where they develop leaders as effective change agents for highly diverse school districts. I'm curious if these are the reasons you board members you selected Dr. Hawker to come here, because you wanted a change agent, you wanted somebody to stick close to the mission or firm to the mission of introducing the social engineering. And
Okay, I've let you go too long now, ma'am.
Every single parent.
You're at 5 minutes, and I'm going to ask you to stop.
Fight back, because you will lose your children.
Duncan Kohler?
Hi, I'm Duncan Kohler. I'm from Coeur d'Alene. I want to talk about the school district's curriculum problems. Problem number one, you've adopted an expensive psychosocial program, Portrait of a Graduate, has striking similarities with critical race theory. There's a lot of overlap there. It's also troublesome that they're not only teaching this in the classroom, but keeping track of the results and what the kids say. So I call this introducing the thought police to our classroom. That's problem number one. Problem number two, the district's website, in talking about this program, talks about how it's based on a general consensus in the community. Here's your consensus. I wonder why that wasn't thought about beforehand. Problem number three, I'm not certain that there's a consensus among the teachers as to this program. I have in my hands here today a letter from a Coeur d'Alene teacher. She participated in the program training exercises down in Denver, and you sent a lot of teams down there, and it's expensive. And you've also had people come up here on a monthly basis to indoctrinate the teachers. According to the teacher, teachers are against this program, but they're not allowed to speak out. In fact, they're being bullied not to speak out about what they think about this program. The training that's being run, this program is being run by the Public Education and Business Coalition. So look that up. They are deep into social emotional learning, the SEL. They tout their focus on SEL, including CRT subject matter. Go to their website and check it out. As I researched that PEBC group, I came across another one that's very interesting, Swell Collective. Check them out. Swell Collective is coaching school districts in states that have barred CRT from being taught in the schools. It's coaching them how to hide the curriculum and deny that it's being taught. I just wonder whether District 271 is in cahoots with the Swell Collective. Problem number 4, I've mentioned this, but the district is attempting to bully teachers not to speak out and to shut down dissent by changing policy number 5270 to provide for discipline to teachers who open their mouths to the public about what's in this curriculum. This has to stop. I've got a public records request right here that I would like to present to Ms. Towns, and I'd like to get information regarding the ties between the district and this PEBC group, ties between the district and the Swell Collective, if any. I don't know if they are, but I want to find out. I want to find out about the cost to taxpayers of this program, the ongoing costs, the past costs, and the future costs. And I want to find out about the efforts to shut down dissent among the teachers. May I present this to Ms. Towns?
You may, and I was just going to let you know you're over your 3 minutes.
And I'm finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for your remaining silent when folks are speaking. During Mr. Kohler, though, I could hear somebody, and I don't know who it was, doing the yeah. Please refrain from that, because if that continues, then I will ask those folks to leave. I next have Jeremy DeChaine.
DeShane. Close. Jeremy DeShane, Coeur d'Alene. I just wanted to, honestly, I don't know them. Laura and Duncan, who just spoke, actually did a phenomenal job of trying to isolate what the push is, why this equity is such an issue. I asked this board 3 months ago when I came before you and asked you to analyze it and to reconsider it for a very specific reason. It's fundamentally flawed in the sense that the language has been manipulated. This is a national debate. This is no longer just some rowdy parents that got worked up one day over some curriculum. This is legitimate, bona fide. There's elements of racism to it. There's classism, which it all boils down to a type of Marxism. It's ridiculous how obvious it becomes. So when your responses to the equity 2 months ago, after 2 months of being debated in front, not even debated, just presented, we don't debate. Your response was, I don't see what the issue is. Mr. Morris Rowe, sorry if I messed up your name, his response, your thought was that it was related to driving kids from one school to the other. That was your reference point to equity. Ms. May, you said, I don't really see the debate. I'm not really hearing what the different or why it's such an issue. There's been multiple articles. There's people that are bringing information in front of you to try to give you information where the root of this issue is. I'm a transplant from Oregon. Let me tell you, the West Coast has fallen, and it fell fast. And if Idaho does not wake up, if you folks do not wake up to this information and utilize it and effectively gut it from the system, you will have a bunch of radicals burning down your city in Portland for an entire summer because they feel entitled that they are somehow been justified with their oppression that never existed. Teach history, teach math, get down to the basic curriculums, stay out of morality. That is the parent's job. We ask that you stay focused on the academics, please. It is important, it is vital, and we will fall apart. This community will fall apart similar to what I've watched happen in another state. It's got all the tells and all the signs. So please, I implore you, reconsider the equity stuff. I don't have the time. As you know, 3 minutes. There's not enough to go into the specifics. That's what this whole sheet is. And thankfully they covered that. So again, I ask, reconsider this information. Reconsider the equity. I know you put forth an option that some folks are going to come together and discuss the equity. It's a good step. But I will tell you, the delay is way too long. We're dragging this out. By the time we actually get around to addressing it, it's going to be formatted into our system. And guess what happens when it gets in the system? Well, it's just so hard to get it out. Everybody's used to it. It's messed up, trust me. You don't want to pursue it. So please, reconsider. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Drake.
Jennifer Drake, Coeur d'Alene, Superintendent Hawker, and the Coeur d'Alene School Board of Trustees. Thank you for taking the time to listen to countless parents, teachers, medical professionals, and members of the community during this time. Your job is difficult in the best of times, but I can only imagine what you've been dealing with the last year and a half. Being a school board trustee is usually a thankless job, and now more than ever, I would like to give you my sincere thanks for your time as a volunteer. My comments today will not be full of statistics and medical facts. You've heard all of those. Neither am I going to speak to you about political division or partisan politics invading a sector where they should have never entered. You've been living that daily. What I am going to say comes from a much deeper and more significant part of me. I'm going to speak as a fourth-generation resident of this town, but most importantly, as a mother. I am the mother of 3 children, all of whom are in the Coeur d'Alene Public School District. They are in 1st, 3rd, and 5th grades. They are still in the first half of their time in this school district, and I am genuinely concerned about what it is to come. Children are naturally vulnerable and unempowered to control most of the things in their lives. They rely on their parents and other adults in positions of authority to make the best choices for them. They need us to make the right decisions for them, decisions that greatly affect their lives that they have absolutely no control over. You do that consistently with curriculum plans, safety measures, levies and bonds, teacher and staff requirements, etc. Your job as school board trustee is exactly that. You try to make the best decisions for our kids to support their education and keep them healthy and safe. COVID is no different. Remove the politics, unending vitriol, and overwhelming misinformation, and what you have left is a global pandemic and a virus that has killed hundreds of thousands of people. That's it. And there is absolutely nothing special about North Idaho that makes us somehow immune to the effects of the virus on our lives here. It is hitting us as hard and sometimes harder than anywhere else in the country. It is a serious virus, and it is hospitalizing and killing children. I am terrified. I like to think of myself as a very rational person, but when my children are put at risk, I feel a deep and invasive fear that blasts through every level of coherent thought. I fear for the health, safety, and lives of my children every single day. And while I do whatever I can to protect them, we do not live in a bubble. We live in a community, and it is up to my community to help protect my children. Sorry, I lost my place. This is the cost of living in a society. We have to work together or it will collapse. I have been watching my community collapse for the last year and a half. Between masks, business shutdowns, vaccinations, and mandates, there is a massive rift in our community and people are getting sick and dying because of it. So on behalf of the children that I love more than anything else in this world, I have something to ask of you. If you do nothing else, please require masks in school. If the community is divided anyway, please side with science, basic facts, and nearly every single healthcare provider in our community. If you have to take sides, which you do, please side with the reasonable but scared parents of our school district. If your decision is going to upset some members of the community, please let it be in order to protect the health and safety of our children. If you are fearful of political consequences, please know that that fear is minuscule compared to the fear that I have for my children every time they walk out the door.
Jennifer, you're at 3 minutes.
I know it's hard, believe me, I've been there, but please, please do the right thing. This virus is easily transmittable and deadly. It is up to the responsible members of our community to save our children's lives. Thank you.
Next, Ann Seddon.
Second of all, just indulge me for my 3 minutes. I am missing. You're not on the microphone. They can't hear you. Okay. Please indulge me before my 3 minutes. I am missing a clipboard. While here, many parents were signing a petition opposed to critical race theory. And that clipboard, I do not know where it went. Could somebody raise their hand and let me know they have it? No, it's the second one. I hope this is not an indication that somebody has, I don't like to think that, but somebody absconded with it. I don't know. I'll begin my 3 minutes. But if that occurred, shame on you. Okay, here we go. Start my 3, please. Following are the reasons why I believe most parents should opt their children out of the social, emotional, behavioral testing in the Coeur d'Alene schools. Number 1, I was told by Mr. Nelson that social, emotional, behavioral tests are removed from the records at the end of each year. However, anything that goes online never disappears. The online test for FastBridge, titled Masaber, is provided by Illuminate Education. On the district site, I found this quote: students can access diagnostic assessments and lessons from Cleaver by providing their district email and password. Therefore, it's clear we have the social emotional behavior in the school data file, children's emails, and perhaps Illuminate, who knows where it is. And of course, any printed copies of this sensitive information can be shared. 2, the results of these short-term tests, short snapshot tests, could vary from day to day, depending on the child's mood that day. This is particularly true of very young children and those going through emotional swings of puberty. Considering that data from the test could greatly damage a child's future, I recommend parents opt out, and certainly not opt in. These are not tests conducted or used by trained professionals. The results of these tests will likely prejudice a staff member or teacher at the beginning of a school year, before they get to know the child. How would parents like to have a teacher think at the beginning of the year, here comes trouble? Surely, your child can be singled out for different treatment. A 5 to 10 minute test on a computer should not be trusted to influence a child's school year or life's future, be it leaked. Here is a quote from FastBridge about their tests. Quote, the social emotional behavioral screener is a brief and effective tool for universal screening of K through 12 students' risk for social, emotional, and behavioral problems. Additionally, MySaber is a 20-minute self-reported test for students 2 through 12 that corresponds with SABRE items. SABRE must be used to evaluate students' overall behavior as well as determine if programs and practices in our schools are effectively meeting student needs.
And you're at 3 minutes.
Pardon?
You're at 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to continue, though, a little bit. Not
I will give you
much.
1 more minute, okay?
Okay. The district is not allowing following its own claim about need for testing for social, emotional, and behavioral data. And Lisa may, excuse me, but these are the things you requested at the forum. I quote from the website, in Coeur d'Alene Public Schools, we provide SABRE social emotional learning as needed. One might assume that need would be for a child who demonstrates need for professional or social emotional help. However, I believe this need is based on a student's needs and desires. I believe data collection is intended for the state to justify a basis for their ESL and CASEL program by attempting to correlate it to achievement.
Okay, that's 4 minutes.
Please, next month, when I...
Next, I have Chris Meyer.
I'll wait my turn.
Okay, go ahead.
Great. Thank you. My name is Chris Meyer. I live here in Coeur d'Alene. Thank you, Superintendent Hawker and trustees, for being here tonight. I want to start by thanking you for your volunteer service in support of the public education system here in our community. I share in that spirit of selflessness that comes from volunteering. I happen to serve as the chairman of the Kootenai Health Foundation, and the Economic Development Commission, and on occasion I help coach my son's soccer team. To me, this service and support of others is what makes us a community, not just a collection of rugged individualists who happen to live in close proximity. Whether you've lived here for a day or a decade, we are all members of this same community. Community looks out for one another as we have a shared destiny together. Our personal choices do have impacts on the community members around us. I'm here tonight to encourage you to look out for the community's youngest student population as you evaluate the school district plan for managing this crisis and navigate through the challenges of an unprecedented global pandemic. Kids in school is by far the best learning environment. I think that's what we all want. There's been very little debate in the community about that. The real question is, how do we keep kids in school and do it safely? Our community's healthcare system is overwhelmed with patient care currently taking place in former classrooms and in corridors. COVID-19 testing positivity rates are at their highest levels ever seen in this pandemic. This is causing an enormous strain on our nonprofit community hospital, where we enjoy the incredible combination of high-quality healthcare with the benefits of local control and oversight. I'm afraid that our community is on a trajectory, like many others, with low community vaccination rates and no precautions for our students in schools, which will produce a predictable spike in COVID cases in our students, staff, and teachers, further taxing the overburdened healthcare system, and will be forced to shut down in-person learning. I am the proud father of 2 children in this district. These fine young men are under the age of 12 and do not currently have access to a COVID vaccine option. My 2 sons exhibit their own personal choice to wear a mask indoors, and they do so willingly to protect their fellow students, staff, and teachers. But without any other broader precautions, like physical distancing in the classroom, contact tracing, and the active encouragement of masking, we leave one of our community's most vulnerable populations exposed to the higher risks, as they do not currently have access to vaccine protection. These seem like nominal steps to me in the reopening plan that we could enact to proactively mitigate known risks to the desired outcome of keeping kids healthy and in school. It's a real cause and effect relationship. So tonight, I would encourage you to be cautious and compassionate as you evaluate the reopening plan for our district. An ounce of prevention for our youngest students is in order here, As the pound of Coeur is such a heavy weight, I worry our community cannot bear those outcomes. So thank you again for your volunteer service and leadership. By pulling together, our community can and will make it through these challenging times. Thank you.
Okay, next is Sarah Pierce.
My name is Sarah Pierce. I live here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I'm a wife and mother of 3 children, all of whom are in or have graduated from the Coeur d'Alene School District. I'm also a nurse anesthetist at our community hospital. I've worked here for 20 years. 10 of those years I was doing ICU bedside care. There's much that we all share. We enjoy North Idaho, our opportunities to hunt, fish, hike, and work in this beautiful place. We cherish our independence and individual and collective rights. We want our schools to be safe places. Most importantly, every one of us, all of us care for our families and love our children. So I speak to you as a mom, a healthcare professional, and a citizen of Coeur d'Alene. We need to keep our children safe. I'm now working to care for patients who are critically ill or dying of COVID. I am called to the bedside to intubate when these patients can no longer breathe on their own. I've watched healthy young adults die and become critically ill. They often have air hunger as the virus makes it almost impossible for them to breathe. The pain, desperation, and panic that I've seen in these adults is unimaginable to consider for the children of Coeur d'Alene. And yet the pandemic is poised to spread to our children. We are in a state of emergency. While there are many statistics about the situation here in Coeur d'Alene, the reality is clear. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, our children are now at risk. There are not enough hospital beds for children or doctors trained in pediatric critical care. Whether for COVID or medical care, such as being hurt in an automobile crash, a football game, or a hunting accident, they may not be able to get the care that they need and deserve. Our hospitals are overflowing with patients, and there's no hospitals nearby to turn to, as they are at or above capacity as well. There are things that we can do to keep our children safe and get through this pandemic together. In school, teachers, parents, and students need to temporarily wear masks. It will protect not only your child, but the children of your friends and your neighbors. If our children are sick, they should stay home from school. Adults and young people need to get vaccinated. It's safe and it's effective. The more of us that are vaccinated, the faster COVID-19 can be brought under control, and our family lives, businesses, and our schools can return to normal. But most importantly, we will have protected our children from this dangerous and spreading virus. As a school board, I ask you to carefully consider the safety of our children as the highest priority and help us work together for a healthy Coeur d'Alene. I do not want to be called to the bedside for your child, for my child, or for any child as they struggle to breathe or take their last breath. Thank you.
All right, next is Kara Hicks.
Sorry, super nervous. Good evening, Superintendent Hawker, Chair Brumley, and trustees. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Kara Hicks, and my husband and I are the proud parents of 3 wonderful kiddos that are currently attending Hayden Meadows. They're in 5th, 3rd, and 2nd grade this year. Even though my oldest child entered the Coeur d'Alene School District in 2016, I have to admit that I haven't watched or paid attention to any of the school board meetings until spring of 2020. Come fall of 2020, my husband and I made what I like to call the hardest, easiest decision that we've ever had to make, and decided to homeschool our 3 kiddos utilizing a state-funded homeschooling program. Even though we made that choice for our family, last school year, I still continued to watch school board meetings and pay attention. I hoped our kiddos could return to Hayden Meadows at some point because we've absolutely loved all of the teachers and the staff. We really just had the most amazing experience there. I I also followed along closely because even though my children were not directly impacted by the choices that were made last year, we still cared about the many families that we were close with that were still attending, as well as our community as a whole. Towards the end of the last school year and in the first monthly school board meeting of the summer, we started to see the changes that we wanted to see in order to re-enroll our 3 kiddos back at Meadows. Which brings me to why I'm here tonight. Please, no matter where the ever-changing roller coaster of these times take us, please continue to make masking recommended and keep the choice to mask or not to mask where it belongs, with the parents. I get it. All of us want to do whatever it takes to protect our kids, and while I totally get where the parents and board members come from when they urge us to listen to the experts, I promise you there is no better expert on my children than me. No, I'm not a doctor. However, those that know me well know that I am not afraid to dive into peer-reviewed literature and studies. In fact, I actually kind of geek out over that stuff. I also want to remind you that I speak with doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals on the regular through a platform that I'm involved in. And they also agree that masking should be parents' choice. But sadly, you don't see them here at the board meetings or speaking up in the community because it could cause them to lose their jobs. There's not consensus on this topic. I want to leave you with this thought that struck me this summer when the smoke and fires and air quality were really bad this summer. One of my children takes horse riding lessons. Some parents at that time were choosing to cancel the lessons. I, as a mom, was able to weigh the risk and benefit for my child. See, even if the air quality experts deemed that it was unhealthy to breathe air at that time, I, as my daughter's mom, knew how keeping her from riding lessons would impact her overall health. Only I knew as her mom. It would be worse to keep her from the thing that contributes positively to every area of her life than to listen to the experts that don't know her. Please continue to prioritize teaching our kids reading, writing, and math. And please continue to allow us to be the parents. Thank you.
Okay, that wraps up our public comment for this evening. And that moves us to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through J.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. And this, next is the consent agenda items for information. Did anyone have any comments, questions about those consent agenda items? Okay, moving on. Next, consideration of finance items. We have the emergency levy update, and Ms. Ebner's already up there. Thank you.
Here and ready. So I'm just going to do a quick update. This is a short presentation to recap the board meeting that we had on Friday, so just a few days ago. School districts have the authority to certify in what's called an emergency levy, and that is calculated when attendance is higher compared to prior year. And so in the years where we expect to qualify for an emergency levy, we schedule a meeting on the Friday of the first week of school. So that was the meeting we had at noon, just because of the deadlines with filing with the county. And then so typically if we have that meeting, we do a quick update on Monday because it's off the regular schedule of our board meetings in order to make it transparent as far as what's going on with the emergency levy. So really quickly, just to sum up, we qualified for an emergency levy by having 211 more students in attendance compared to prior year. That calculated out to an emergency levy amount of just under $1.15 million. And then the trustees, you all had a chance to discuss this information, and in the end, we're not in favor, so the motion was not made as far as certifying the emergency levy. So that will not be part of our levy total that we're going to send to the county. And so now that we know that we're not doing the emergency levy, it's a little bit easier to get that levy rate projection. So right here we have our preliminary levy rate. We went into a lot of detail as far as how the levy rate is calculated and how it's applied to taxable assessed values in that meeting. I'm not going to be able to go through all of that tonight, but what I can show you is that what we're projecting, and of course this is a projection because we're still waiting on a few more numbers from the county as far as values, that our levy rate would be just over $1.56 per $1,000 of taxable assessed value. In comparison to prior year, it was $1.79 per $1,000 of taxable assessed value. So that is a levy rate drop of just under 23 cents per $1,000 of taxable assessed value. And you might be wondering, what does that mean for my tax bill? So what that means is we know that the levy rate dropping is a good thing. However, our assessed values throughout the community are increasing. And the way that we try to calculate this value is to ensure that somebody with an average assessed value increase that's equal to or less than the market average assessed value increase would see a flat tax charge for their school district tax bill. So again, this is just the school district's tax bill. There are a number of taxing agencies, but our goal, our commitment in the district has been to keep the school district levy tax charge flat. So that's it. Any questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ebner. All right, next up we have assessment and student achievement. And I'm going to guess that's Mr. Nelson. All right, Dr. Nelson. Sorry, I called you Mr. Nelson. Dr. Nelson.
So deeply offended. Good evening, Chair Brumley, Superintendent Hawker, members of the board. We recognize that our most important asset is our people. From our students, from our staff, these are the people that make Coeur d'Alene Public Schools what it is. Tonight, I have the honor to be able to introduce you a little bit about our staff this year and our student populations. In addition, we are pleased to also bring out our data dashboard and bring that out for public consumption this evening. So the first thing that I'd like to do is talk to you about our instructional staff this year. We do recognize that the best thing that we can do is keep teachers. The greater longevity that we have of instructional staff in our district, the greater the performance. And research will conclude that as well. So one of the first things that we did is we really tried to make a huge welcome to our brand new staff. And in the end of August, we welcomed 33 new staff to Coeur d'Alene High School and gave them an orientation to our district. Many of our colleagues participated in that as well. And you can actually see one of the things that they told us of what brought them to Coeur d'Alene. Those are the top three down at the bottom. Our outreach, first of all, telling people why this is a great school district, why it's important to be able to live here. The location of our district continues to be a great asset to us. And again, there is a strong belief in the quality of teaching and learning that is going on in our classrooms every single day. Those are the three things that are attracting people. This year, we are able to attract new staff from literally all over the world, including a new staff member from Sydney, Australia. These are the hometowns of all of the staff and where they are coming from. A great majority of those staff are coming from the Northwest and from the state of California. We also asked our staff a little bit about their experiences and backgrounds that brought them to us today. This is a sad moment for me, and Chair Brumley, you're probably feeling the same way about this one, but this is the first time that the University of Idaho has not been the most represented of all of our institutions. I know we've got to do a little bit better, but Eastern Washington University this year had 4 brand new teachers sending to us. We had 2 from Cal State Sacramento. They did not know each other. Then 3 also from the Spokane area. The other unique thing about the staff that we are attracting is that they are not all brand new teachers. A majority of the staff that is coming to us on the instructional capacity actually has their master's degree Almost 2/3 of them are coming to us with experience and a higher degree. So that's also a good thing to be able to see. So how does that little niche fit into our overall instructional staff as a district? I'd like to share with you what our overall staff demographics look like this year. The first way that I'd like to take a look at that is by years of service. We already talked about how important those years of service are. Well, here's our distribution of staff as of the date of September 13th or September 10th when we pulled this data. You can see a majority of our staff, almost or more than a third, comes 0 to 5 years of service. In addition, 6 to 10 years, we have about 23 years of service. So over half of our staff is under 10 years of service. Our turnover rate this last year was 16%. You do see, however, that we do have good chunks of staff in their 11th to 15th year, 16th to 20th years of service, and even higher. That one little sliver in pink, by the way, I noticed that when I was doing my rehearsal, 1.7% of our staff are over 30 years of experience. How does that break down district staff to elementary versus secondary? On the left-hand side, you see our years of service for our elementary staff, and you see our years of service in secondary. For the most part, they track pretty well, but you will notice that we have a greater number of new teaching staff in our secondary schools. Or excuse me, in our elementary schools, 35%. I was backward, the scale is off. The other thing that you might want to notice is the size of the green and the orange bars. We have a little bit of a bubble in our secondary schools where we have our staff in that 20 years of service range. That may be something that hits us fairly hard in the next 10 years as those staff reach retirement age. I'd also like to personally give a couple of shout outs. I had a chance to walk through classrooms today at Dalton Elementary School and had a chance to talk to Mrs. Nancy Nuttleman. Mrs. Nuttleman is a first grade teacher at Dalton Elementary School, and this year she starts her 40th year of instruction in Coeur d'Alene Public Schools. In addition, I had a chance to stop at Lake City High School this last week and congratulate Joe Partington this year, who starts year number 36. We have a lot of great experience in our buildings. It's also important to take a look at some of the demographics of our staff. We take a look at everything from race and gender. Well, it's interesting to note that only 2% of our staff identify themselves as Asian, American Indian, Alaska Native, biracial, and/or Hispanic. That can be compared to about 85% of our student staff identifying themselves as white. Additionally, over 75% of our staff are female, comparative to 55% of our students that are male. So we have quite the imbalance in both of those areas when you compare staff and students with gender. Speaking of our students, let's take a few moments and show you what's happening in our classrooms around. This data had to be provided to you by the board packet deadline, but I'll give you some updates along the way. So this data is as of September 3rd, and we have seen some changes since then. When the board packet was put together, our district enrollment was at 10,228 students. As of this morning, we are now at 10,306 students. So since last Wednesday, we've gained 78 students district-wide. You can see that range along the way. It's important to take a look on the blue graph, the bubble that is in grade 9. We've been tracking that bubble for years as they have moved through. It is a huge freshman class and ballooning at all of our high schools along the way. 931 freshmen in the district this year. You can also see our highest levels of enrollment are at our high schools. 931, 868, 848 outpace all of the other grade levels along. But how does that enrollment stack up over previous years? The red bars at the bottom shows our September enrollment over the previous 10 years. And you can see that our highest level of enrollment in September was 3 years ago at 11,110. And again, currently now, as of today, at 10,306. So we're down about 800 students over the last 3 years. What does our student race distribution take a look at? Well, we continue to see the majority of our students self-identify as white. Now, keep in mind, this is based off of selection of the parent and guardian at the time of either registration or enrollment. So staff, or these students and these families, have the ability to check whichever they feel is most applicable to their own homes. We do not see a huge difference in what we saw in terms of racial diversity from this last year. Still about 85% self-identify as white. That is also fairly consistent between our elementaries and secondaries. Student-wise, also, again, as we talked about, we're 54% now male throughout the entire district. So if you're a lady in the district, you've got lots of choices to be able to choose that. Lots of dances coming up here pretty soon. I hope there's Sadie Hawkins. The other thing that you might find interesting is that we offer a wide variety of programs and services for our students, whether those students are not native speakers of English, whether they receive assistance in free or reduced lunch, whether they are a homeless, or whether they need health or special education. Right now, we have over 300 students that are homeless within our district. Now, certainly that's a small number when you take a look at it, it's 3.1%, but that is an increase of about 40 students over the previous year. And we do have our McKinney-Vento staff who are working very diligently to try to support these students the best. We also saw such an outgiving of our community with many gifts over the last several weeks from local businesses. So very much going to that. The other one that we're going to have to keep an eye on is free or reduced lunch. Currently, our free and reduced lunch rate is at 27%. That's about 10% down from previous years. And a lot of that probably has to be equated to that all lunches are free throughout all schools in the United States this year, per the federal government. That is something, however, that does impact funding. So there are lots of things that will ask us about free and reduced lunch rate and may affect future funding and or granting abilities as well.
So
I'd
Dr.
like to
Nelson,
take a few moments. Yes,
just
go
really
ahead.
quick off of that then, do you have an estimation of what it actually might be, if that's not super accurate? Because
I would love to tell you that I do, but this is also the time of year where our nutrition services staff is really doing a nice job outreaching to families to try to get the necessary documentation to do so. Up on our dashboard, which we'll show you here in a few minutes, we will be able to watch that over the course of the year. But that is something that we do need to continue to do, even though the benefit of free and reduced lunch is provided to all students. Chair Brumley, may I ask if there are any questions before I move into our data dashboard on our staff and or student demographics?
Yes, you can ask.
Okay.
Does anybody have questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I am also pleased to stand in front of you tonight to talk about our data dashboard. When we passed our system performance framework this last year, we made a guarantee to this community. And we wanted to make our data more actionable, more available, more clickable for our students and staff. So now, based off of the directive in our system performance framework, we are now pleased to be able to kick off a dashboard which allows anybody in the community to see current demographics, student performance, any of our operational indicators. In fact, as soon as we have our transport system online, we will actually be able to look at age of bus fleet, ridership. We can look at our age of our buildings and the maintenance necessary in our buildings all in one place coming up in the next couple of months. This intent, of course, is for you, our decision makers in our buildings, to be able to say, what do we need? Where do our emphases need to be placed? From our building leaders, where do they need to put emphasis? What kinds of indicators are they seeing that students are growing? All of these things will be available, ultimately leading to our ability to have performance-based budgeting in the district where our resources are truly put behind our data. We'd like to encourage anybody to take a look at our dashboards and our first KPIs, our key performance indicators that are posted at this site, cdaschools.org/data. And with permission, I would like to take a few moments to actually take you there.
Dr. Nelson, just while you're doing that, folks that are in the back there, standing, there are a number of seats that have opened up inside here if you want to come in and sit down. I know some of them are front of the row, and I was never the front of the row classroom type of kid either, but there's lots of seats available if you want to come sit down.
So there are a couple of different ways to get to our dashboards. The first is just by going to our district website at cdaschools.org. Once you are on our district website, you're going to go into the About Us tab, and you'll see the data dashboard listed right at the bottom here. Again, if I'm at our district website, About Us, Data Dashboard. Or again, the quick link of cdaschools.org/data will get you to this page. This gives us an opportunity to be able to take a look at all of our district dashboards, elementary, middle school, and high school. Within the next couple of months, we will have 35 different KPIs, or key performance indicators, on a variety of different topics embedded within each of these. But I just showed you our staff and student demographics, and maybe you'd be interested in breaking that down a little bit more, because I didn't tell you much about our elementary demographics and our middle school demographics and our high school. Well, there's panels off to the right-hand side which take you to specific. So for example, let's tell you a little bit more about our middle schools. Simply by clicking the tile, you're going to be able to go into a specific dashboard. I will tell you that this is the first launch. We do have a couple of things that we're working on, and I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. So as you go into any of the dashboards, there'll be a heading. So this first heading is about middle school enrollment. And you'd be able to see how our enrollment just in our middle schools have changed over the last 5 years. As you scroll down, again, we have that broken out by gender, by race and ethnicity, and by program enrollment. Each of these windows do allow for zooming. So if you would like to either export them or take a closer look, you can. One of the things that we are struggling with right now, however, in our dashboards is that we are not allowed to put numbers in the charts, which is a little bit of a pain in a patooey. We're working on that right now. But it would be nice to be able to see the values that are in here. However, we also have to make sure that our website is ADA accessible. And some screen readers cannot read charts that place numbers in them. So we're trying to find the best way to be able to handle that. But again, as you scroll down the page, you'll be able to see enrollment and staffing. This is that same graph of years of service by level. So this is just for our middle school staff. So you can find out which one of our staffs has the most esteemed experience. That would be Canfield Middle School, based off of this year. So we are again pleased to share with you our data dashboards are alive at cdaschools.org/data. I hope that you have a chance to be able to take a look through here. Provide us a little bit of feedback as well. I'd like to also stand for your questions and remind you that next month we will have some assessment data for you to be able to share publicly and to fill our dashboard. Students are currently taking the Idaho Reading Indicator right now in grades K through 5. Their mathematics assessments through iReady through K through 5. Our FastBridge assessments in reading and mathematics in grades 6 through 12. And our civics assessment is currently open for students. And starting next month, also in our dashboard, we will post information about attendance, which is also timely this time of year. Thank you. I'd like to stand for any further questions that you have.
Thanks, Dr. Nelson. We've been waiting for this data for quite some time, so I appreciate you sharing it tonight. I think it's a step in the right direction to improve transparency between the district and the community. Question for you, key performance indicators, will those be decided annually, or have you guys kind of met as a team and already selected some key performance indicators?
Correct. Our cabinet team has met, and we have 35 right now on a variety of different academic and behavioral KPIs. I'd be more than glad to share the list with you should you like to take a look at what the full plan is. Some of those data are tough to visualize, so we're working with our vendor right now to make sure that we have the clearest way to be able to project it. Would that be of your interest?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you have opportunity, it'd be nice to know what they're going to be. If it's something that we reevaluate annually, depending on maybe what our goals are or what our continuous plan looks like, it's something that maybe, do you imagine that kind of evolves as we continue to use it?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Just, I think maybe expanding on what Trustee May was asking. So I just want to make sure I understand those key performance indicators. Right now, it's demographic information that you have up there. But as we build it out, it'll begin to be assessment data, graduation rate, let's say, or just whatever the 30
Correct.
some odd components are.
So what we had talked about in cabinet, that instead of just putting everything up there, is providing a little bit of context. So the idea was, since I've already provided you an assessment calendar and when I would be presenting data to you, that we would launch those key performance indicators at the same time so that we can have an understanding of what those data mean. And then once they are up there, they will be regularly updated. So for example, we have optional reading assessments every single month. Even though the Idaho Reading Indicator is offered in the months of September and May, we'll be able to look at those data live anytime you click into those dashboards. So they would be updated once a month, but we wanted to kind of socialize those dashboards along the way. If you feel differently with that, please check in with Dr. Hawker. We'd be more than glad to put more things out there in an immediacy for you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Nelson. We'll look forward to seeing you next month. All right. First of our action items this evening, we need to appoint a long-range planning committee liaison. Currently, it is Ms. Vice Chair Rebecca Smith. And so I guess my first question would be, is that something you would like to continue in?
I'm willing to serve in that role, unless, no. I'm happy to serve in that role currently, so.
Do I have a motion?
I move that Ms. Smith continue in her role as a long-range planning liaison.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you very, very much, Rebecca.
We need to approve the membership list as well. It didn't say that, but it was in the packet.
Oh, okay. Do I have a motion regarding the long-range planning membership?
I'll move to approve, geez, I can't read that, the committee members as listed on the document.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Committee members approved. Thank you, Ms. Town, for putting that together, if you did. Okay, next on our action items, we have the boundary change with Lakeland School District. Is that going to be you, Dr. Hawker?
Okay, well, I can pinch it for him. You bet. So the updated agenda, the updated item for this specific agenda with the boundary change, you've received. The support from the Lakeland School District is believed to be exactly the same. You have a sample motion before you that is highlighted in yellow. If you see that one with yellow, just in the event that, in this case, the Lakeland School District changed in the original draft of the document, they were listed as Lakeland School District, and they wanted to be listed as Lakeland Joint School District. So some of those formalities. But otherwise, we believe everything is in order and ready to go. And you have the additional attachments for the legal descriptions and everything if you want to review those. That's the pinch hit that Mr. Voller could have done a whole lot better with.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Hawker. And maybe just for those in the audience's edification, we are in process and about to have approved a land swap, essentially, that will tighten up the borders a little bit and give them land that makes more sense to be in their zone and give us land that makes more sense to be in our zone. And so this has been in the works for a couple of years. And in fact, we had a joint board meeting maybe 3 months ago. And so this is sort of the tail end of all of that work and effort and collaboration. So trustees, any comments, questions?
I would just comment, I appreciate that through a couple superintendents here. I think 3. Dr. Olson started this maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I appreciate that we've been able to work through this with Post Falls first and then Lakeland to really align boundaries with major arterial roads that make sense for both school districts. So I'm glad we were able to come up with something that works for both communities. And glad to see it moving to the final stage.
I just had a quick question on timeline. Maybe Dr. Hawker can help us as we move to the next stage. Do we know how long it'll take once the state receives our request, or Mr. Voller might be the person for that?
Yeah, I believe that will be approved or presented at the next state board meeting.
It will be. Okay, thank you.
No, I'll go ahead. I move that the board approve the proposed petition or a petition substantially similar for a boundary revision between the Coeur d'Alene and Lakeland School District to be submitted to the State Board of Education per Idaho Code 33-307 and authorize the board chair and superintendent to execute all documents pursuant to the request.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, great. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to Mr. Voller for all of his hard work on putting this together and not being able to be here to seal the deal, I guess. Okay. Next on our action is the COVID mitigation operating plan for 2021-2022 school year. Dr. Hawker, do you want to introduce that and start with any comments on that?
You bet. Chair Brumbley and members of the board, this reopening plan that is presented to you is nothing more, nothing less than the original reopening plan that was presented with the title draft in the heading. And per your request, the draft has been removed and the plan is presented for discussion tonight. So that's really, I guess, as much of an update at this juncture, and then certainly I believe we will have lots of discussion and conversation with the reopening plan and where we're at today.
Okay, with that, I would open it up to other trustees for comments.
I just have, we could start with questions if that would be okay.
Sure.
Dr. Hawker, are you able to give us an update on how our schools are looking right now as far as new COVID exposures and staff that might be out?
Yes. Let me open that up right here. Okay, so on our district webpage, we keep a live, up-to-date running of events and specifically focusing on our staff that are out of the building because of a COVID-related absence, as well as our students. So you can see that information on the webpage as of right now. As a district-wide summary, we have, as of unless my screen has not refreshed, might be a little different than yours, but I already had this up here at the start of our meeting. 168 students who are out of the buildings because of a positive case or perhaps a self-quarantine, any of those kinds of scenarios. 168 students, and we have 12 staff members. So obviously, all of that we're keeping a very close eye on, trying to monitor and try to get ahead. One of our commitments is of course to try to keep this data sheet in the forefront of our community, so that patrons, as they're looking to see if we're trending towards a challenge at one of our schools or one of our locations, that gives them that heads up for that information. And right now, again, we believe we've only been in school for 5 days now, counting today. So we'll continue to monitor that over the next couple of weeks, especially. But with 12 teachers currently out, we've been able to keep our operations relatively running smooth. It's interesting just to note, as we stated in previous workshops and things, every position in the district is paramount, and so obviously these staff absences also really depend upon the positions. So we're certainly really watching that. You can imagine how it would be if you lost if you had 3 staff members out in one school and all 3 of them happened to be your cooks that day. That could be very challenging to serve meals to students that day. So really trying to watch that, but that's our total numbers as of my screen last time I refreshed.
Can I just ask a follow-up question to that real quickly? What are we doing for the 168 students who are currently learning from home? Are they being provided any instructional time? I know they're probably getting assignments via Schoology, but are we doing anything to help them while they're out of school?
Yes, Trustee May. The plan right now is that as students transition from their in-school face-to-face instruction, they will transition to a blended learning approach utilizing the Schoology programs that you have in place, and those teachers are doing their utmost best. They're really truly working extra hard, taking care of and continuing instruction with the students that are in front of them each day, as well as continuing with instruction for those that may end up being at home for a week or two, depending upon their quarantine period. So yeah, it's obviously a challenging time for our staff, but so far our staff have been able to do okay as we're continuing to move forward. So we certainly want to continue our request that students stay at home if they're experiencing any signs and symptoms, so that we can try to keep any sorts of in-house spreads that might occur to a bare minimum, so that we don't have a whole lot of kids out. And that's why we're certainly monitoring it as every minute with this live spreadsheet.
One last follow-up question to those questions. What are we doing for our staff to provide support for them? I know last year we heard that it was a lot of work while students were out either on quarantine or with illness. So are we providing any additional support to our staff to help them during this time while there are so many students that are out of the classroom?
I'm going to defer that. As I'm aware, let me back up. Yes, certainly there are some supports that we currently already have in place. Of course, the good news to any of this, if there is the fact that our teachers have experienced this already for 1 year, so they have that history, and they have some great work to continue and build upon, and so that is making the transition a little smoother. As far as us bringing in additional classroom assistants and things like that, that's all handled on an individual case-by-case basis. In fact, at times we may have a teacher, him or herself, who is out of school because of a COVID-related absence, and yet they'll continue to instruct and teach remotely. And in those cases, we obviously still need an adult in the classroom to supervise the students, and so a teacher's aide, a student, a paraprofessional, perhaps maybe another teacher, depending upon the schedule and the school and all that stuff, could be in those classrooms to help out those teachers at that time as well.
Dr. Hawker, I just have one question around quarantining. It seems with some of the comments that we were getting, or emails and information I've heard around town, maybe a little confusion around what the district is or isn't doing there. And could you kind of clear that up as far as, we are not allowing students who have tested positive and that have told us that they've tested positive, or we've received notification they've tested positive, to attend school. Is that correct? That
is correct. And thank you for that question, because yes, it's been brought to our attention as well that we need to be more clear and make sure there's no misunderstanding in this situation. We have a scheduled cabinet meeting for tomorrow, at which time further clarity will be expressed so that we can get the word out to all of our schools, so that there's no questions. Any student or staff member that would directly test positive is required to be quarantined and be out of the school setting, so that we can limit those spreads. That is following that Idaho state statute that we're required to follow anyway, as well as any self-reported quarantines or self-reported exposures. Same scenario. So we very well know that if a mom or a dad in a family were to potentially test positive, we are also asking those students in that family, those kids in that family, whatever school grade they're at, to also remain out. They're doing it. Most of them are doing a good job of contacting their schools, contacting their school nurses, looking at those dates and determining when is the best time for those students to be able to return. Is it out of the question that some kids are coming to school when they perhaps knowingly have been close around somebody that's tested positive? Yes, that's a possibility. And so we just want to continue our message that we're asking everybody who is knowingly in contact with a positive case to quarantine. And that's why you'll see on our district-wide report, we're not just reporting those that we know that are positive. We are having some folks that are self-reporting, and we're including those numbers in our report. So we will do a good job tomorrow of reiterating that exact position, so that the word can disseminate from tomorrow's cabinet meeting back to all administrators in all schools and all the nurses and secretaries, so that everybody is very clear on that expectation.
I just had another question, kind of piggybacking on that, and I think you answered part of it, but I know that we have received a lot of emails regarding quarantining, and it's confusing, especially because we do have some sort of, we do have obligation to follow our state statute, particularly 33512. And Section 7, this is the part that I think we need legal to clarify for us, and it pertains to those students who are not immune, so students who have not had access to vaccine, or those students who may be immunocompromised. Has legal been able to definitively tell us if we have a statutory obligation to quarantine close contacts during the school day?
Yes, Chair Brumley, and Trustee May, your legal counsel's on the phone in Zoom. If you'd like to directly ask that question, I think that's obviously probably best.
No, go ahead.
I don't know, did you hear my question okay, or do you want me to repeat it?
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and repeat the question. Sorry, you mean trustees?
Yeah, we've received a lot of parent emails and some concern, parents concerned about that we're not following state statute 33-512, particularly Section 7 as it pertains to students who are not immune. What is our obligation to quarantine those students who have an exposure during the school day, and i.e. those students who are not immune as written in state statute?
Well, what exactly the obligation is, as far as a procedural level, is sort of up to the administration and the board to determine based on what resources we have, what the resources and what can possibly be done. But the statute is pretty clear. Under 33-512, the board has the duty to exclude from school any student who obviously are diagnosed or suspected of having contagious or infectious disease, or those who are not immune and have been exposed. So our policy elsewhere defines COVID-19 as a contagious and infectious disease that's subject to exclusion under this statute. If the board, or if the school has knowledge during the day of an exposure, and can make that determination that that student does have limited immunity, whether they're not vaccinated or what other factors are at play, and they've definitely gotten exposure to that disease, i.e. a sibling of someone, close contacts, et cetera, then yes, the board's statutory duty is to exclude those kids from school. I don't know exactly what is planned. The current plan says that the district will follow that statute. It sounds like Dr. Hawker is going to be following up on that with cabinet. But yes, cabinet needs to propose and develop maybe a more detailed plan consistent with whatever the board's directives are and within the resources available to make sure that students that we have a known exposure and a known lack of immunity are quarantined.
I guess that clears it up. I think it's just frustrating in this hour that we're looking at a plan that doesn't provide for that. And it was just through emails from community members, concerned parents, that it was brought to my attention. So I guess I'm just worried how we continue or we proceed approving our opening plan if we haven't accounted for that population of students. So I guess I'm curious to enter into conversation on that. How do we remedy this? How do we provide for that? Legally, I think you've kind of told us what our position is, but I guess it's for the rest of us to figure out. But
I have a question. Do you know if under more recent legislative statutes that have been enacted, if we have any ability or authority to ask anyone about their vaccination status?
Oh, you know what? I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head. I apologize.
I do not believe we do as a condition of being on site or being, having access, I believe, and that's for any government agency.
That's what I thought the answer was, but I was looking for or legal to confirm that, but that's my understanding as well.
That one I couldn't give you a definitive answer.
That wasn't very fair, was it? I'm sorry.
No.
And so in light of what I understand our abilities are, is I think we are doing everything we can under the statute, but because it says that we have a duty to exclude if they're diagnosed or suspected and not immune and have been exposed, I don't know how we ever get past the not immune status. And so we can only do the best that we are, and I think our plan addresses quarantining known cases and advising that close contacts need to also be quarantined. And when we know of students that have been in a particular classroom or in a particular building, that we are notifying parents of that positive. And that's how I think we're identifying and addressing it.
Dr. Hawker, one question I have is under the diagnostic and screening testing. It says here on our plan that we will partner with state or local public health authorities to offer screening and diagnostic testing to families, teachers, and staff. What does that look like for us right now?
As far as abilities of our staff and student to be tested? Is that your question? I guess reframe.
Oops, sorry. How are we partnering with everyone to either increase testing, help provide testing? What does that look like?
Right now on our district website, you may have noticed a little graphic flowchart kind of a thing that is helping promote the need to, or the availability to go to local places to receive those testings. So we're advertising with that, working through with our health officials. Last year, you did have some opportunities on site at some of the schools for some of that testing and screening. It's been the board's directive that that's not going to happen this next year, so we're not doing anything on our school sites this year, but we're certainly promoting locations, promoting information that we receive from our health officials to allow to just continue to share out that information to our patrons.
Okay, so maybe I missed that piece at some point. What about the funding that the state put out there regarding testing? Was that just part of what we had decided at some point, that we weren't going to utilize that to help increase testing or help provide testing for families?
No, let me. I don't want to jump to assumptions of what you may be asking, but yes, recently there was a governor's grant that made it available for districts to implement some sort of a testing procedures and protocols. For instance, if the board wanted to potentially ask, all unvaccinated students or staff or somebody to take this test on a Friday, those tests could be available, and then they get the results in a couple of days, or at least by Monday generally. What right now what we have in place, every building has those free tests.
Right.
We've ordered at least 18 boxes of those tests, so that's at least 2 per site. There's about 50 tests in there available for anybody to just come in and grab. Whether you're a student or a grandma of a student, you can grab that test and take it home and do the test yourself and send it away, and you get those results back pretty quickly. But we have not partnered with the state grant that would require us to have some sort of an all-site and all facility or an all program testing. Our local health officials have so far shared with us that we believe that the numbers of tests that we need are still available for us, and so we've not seen a need to get those additional tests.
But a parent could, for peace of mind on a Friday,
go and
get a test. I mean, it's easy to access
those
that.
Those tests are readily available. You betcha.
Can I ask just a clarifying subject on the type of tests that are available? Because I know the technology has improved a lot since we initially had this conversation. These current tests we have to be sent in, and that's just one extra step. If a parent did want a test and access to a rapid test, I know that they're widely available now. Is that something that we could look into offering for those students or families that chose to get testing if they had a sick person at home or they wanted to keep coming to school? Was that something that we could look into providing?
Sure, I don't know why not. I think right now there's some local sites in town that are offering those testing opportunities. So it just matters, it's just a matter of making sure that they're aware of those locations and where to go. And if the board felt so inclined that maybe we should have some locations somewhere else in the district to offer that, we certainly could look at putting that together.
I know the rapid tests have been hard to come by at Walgreens and locally,
Yes.
retail places, and I think it's a way that if we want to be successful in keeping schools open, and it seems as though parents have reached out and want access to that sort of testing, since we have received monies directly for that area, it would be nice if we could provide that.
Yes.
Well, I'm happy to get started on the elephant in the room, which I think is the masking issue. I do have a suggested change because under the masking, we just simply indicate masks are not required at any Coeur d'Alene School District facility. I would like to see language in there that says masks are strongly recommended, but are not required at the Coeur d'Alene School District facility. And I will share some comments behind why I'd like to see that and why I'm still a proponent of not having a mask mandate. I want to start by saying that the last 2 months have been very difficult for myself and my fellow trustees, and I'm sad that COVID has led this community to what my fellow board members have had to endure. We talk about threats, and there seems to be this inference that it's only one side, and that's the minority. But what I will tell you is that in light of the reopening plan and those that don't support a mask mandate, while they've been relatively silent, despite the board's position on the reopening plan, we were still yelled at in a public forum. We still continue to get tacit threats from both sides. Both my colleagues that are in favor of a mask mandate have been intimidated and bullied. My 2 other colleagues that do not favor a mask mandate have been intimidated and threatened personally with lawsuits. Both sides of the masking issue, in my opinion, are being bullies and are using intimidation to get what they want. Who is defining science when we are being told to follow the science? There's questions about masking being child abuse. Should children have to prevent the spread of a disease to an unvaccinated community? Public health officials claim to base their decisions and guidance on, quote, science. Other public officials will tell you there is no science behind mask mandates for children. Dr. Makary, M-A-K-A-R-Y, he's with Johns Hopkins. He found that $42 billion of the National Institute of Health spent on research last year. There was less than 2% that went to COVID clinical research, and not a single grant studied masking on children. Elisa Schnechter Perkins, I'm happy to spell that if somebody needs it. She is the director of the Emergency Medicine Infectious Disease Management of Boston Medical Center. She said, a year ago, I stated masks are not the end of the world. Why not just wear a mask? But the world has changed. There are real downsides to masking children for this long, with no known end date and without any clear upside. I'm not aware of any studies that show conclusivity that kids wearing masks in school has had any effect on their own morbidity or mortality or in the hospitalization or death rate in the community around them. A study published by the CDC covered more than 90,000 elementary school students of 169 Georgia schools from November 16th to December 11th last year. According to the CDC, it was the first of its kind, and it compared COVID-19 incidences in schools with certain mitigation measures in place. The study summary did not include the null effects of a student masking requirement. Vinay Prasad, he's a professor at the University of California, San Francisco's Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics said that a masking requirement of students failed to show independent benefit is a finding of consequence and great interest. It should have been included in the summary. The summary gives the impression that only masking of staff was studied. But Tracy Hogue, an epidemiologist at the and senior author of separate CDC studies on COVID-19 transmission, says when in reality, there was additional important detection about student masking requirement not having a statistical impact. A common argument right now is the emergence of the Delta variant and that it changes everything, but there is research coming out of Britain that suggests it's not more virulent and it is not more harmful, it is more contagious. What other science is relevant? Germans have studied the CO2 levels in masking and have concerns that it's harmful. Studies show masking has created an inability to recognize people and some failure to read emotions. What governor or legislature is right, and what science are they following? In South Carolina, the Supreme Court has struck down mask mandates. In our neighboring state of Montana, legislation has said no to mask mandates. Texas government is suing its own school districts for having mask mandates. Meanwhile, Arizona's governor is creating 2 grant programs aimed at incentivizing parents and schools to reject mask mandates. In one program, it would allocate money only to districts that follow all the state laws, including the ban on mask requirements. The other would set aside $7,000 per student for families affected by mask mandates or quarantines to spend on things like childcare or even private school tuition. What science are these states relying on? Probably something similar to what I just outlined above. What do we know about our neighboring states in Washington and Oregon and their mask mandate? In the last 3 days, out of their own publications, a joint press conference with Spokane County healthcare providers on Friday morning, Providence's chief operating officer said 2 hospitals are caring for their highest number of COVID-19 patients since the pandemic. Spokane Regional Health District, Chaz Health, Kaiser Permanente, Multicare, and Providence came together on Friday morning to share the current status of healthcare staff and hospital staff during the 5th wave of COVID-19. Dr. Francisco Velasquez, health officer for Spokane Regional Health District, said, "This new COVID-19 surge driven by the Delta variant is causing the highest rate of hospitalizations that Washington providers have seen." He added that they are closely following the current situation across the border. They have not activated crisis standards of care. Spokane hospitals are not rationing critical care, but providers are stretched to their limits, taking care of record numbers of COVID patients. Among the 4 Spokane hospitals, there are 224 COVID-19 patients being treated for the virus. All elective procedures have been halted at all 4 hospitals, and surgical staff have been diverted to crowded emergency rooms, intensive care units, and COVID wards. Similar statistics are coming out of Oregon. So the question I ask is, if you have 2 states that have mask mandates in place and they are under the same crisis, maybe we're looking in the wrong place. What other countries and other scientists have done should we look to? Do we consider the maskless policies of Sweden? Do we consider the UK that dropped their mask mandate in August? I have to ask myself when I look at all of this, what country, what science is right? I'm told daily in emails that I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert, and you're right. Sadly and tragically, even those that are experts and scientists do not agree. Our legislature and governor have not given us any kind of guidance, like other states have, one way or the other. And by not doing so, it's left the school district and every school district in this state deciding mask mandates. So then I look to the community. And what science is this community following? What science is being used for a countywide mask mandate? What science is being used for a citywide mask mandate? The same science is where I have to ask myself, how do I mandate student masking every day for 7 hours when before and after school, those children will be in restaurants, businesses, and churches where people are packed together and not masked? There is some science we can look to in the CDC, and that's on the statistics of children that have died from COVID and the flu. On the CDC website, it states from 2020 to 2021, that is as of September 8th, 21, there have been 55,352 deaths of people 0 to 17 years old. Of those, 412 are with COVID or due to COVID. That is since March of 2020. There were 10 times as many deaths due to pneumonia alone as were due to COVID. The flu has disappeared, but it has killed as many or more children per month that COVID does now. 63 children died in January of 2020 from the flu. 76 children died in February of 2020 from the flu. The worst month to date for COVID was August of 2020, and 49 children died. Only 2 months have exceeded the number of flu deaths since March of 2020. COVID is a serious illness, but it is not and has not done anything different to our child population than what the flu has. And so I look to those sources for why I continue to believe that a mask mandate in this community is not what is appropriate. So I would move that we amended the reopening plan to state we strongly recommend masking, but it is not required.
Chair Brumley, on that edit, I would support that edit. And so, since I think technically you're not supposed to make a motion, I will. That we approve the district reopening plan with the edit that masks are strongly recommended at all Coeur d'Alene schools.
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
Yeah, I think I'll weigh in and kind of give my rationale as to how we've thought about this for quite some months, too many months actually. But I've heard we've read hundreds of emails, and I will tell you that there's no one side has more people believing that their way is right. We've heard from heart-wrenching emails from both sides, and while we haven't gotten back to each and every email has been read and has been considered. So I hope that our community recognizes that. One email that we got today, and Chair Blumley brought it up, was how the UK and Ireland are currently handling COVID-19 in their school system. And I think it's a valuable point of discussion, and it's helped me kind of decide how I feel about our opening plan tonight. And I think it's imperative that we consider, you're right, they're not currently requiring their students to mask. However, what they are doing is mitigation that we will not be doing. And I want to talk briefly about why I cannot support our plan tonight. And it's not just because of masking. Masking is one integral piece of an opening plan, but it is not everything. And a strong opening plan includes layered mitigation strategies. And I wish Nicole Piekarski was here tonight so she could discuss with us the importance of these mitigation strategies. But what I feel like our plan is deficient in, and what the UK and Ireland are doing to be successful. What they are doing is vaccinating their population. They have a much higher vaccination rate than Idaho currently does. Kootenai County currently has one of the lowest vaccination rates in our country. Currently, our hospital has initiated crisis.
Just a second, Lisa. You guys were really respectful to me, and I appreciate that. And I would just please ask, as each trustee has an opportunity to give their comments, please just keep your comments to yourself. I think we have a pretty good sense of where folks in here are sitting, and I don't want the flow of these individuals up here who have read your emails, who have respectfully considered all of them, giving them a chance to speak their heart and letting us vote on this issue. Thank you.
Moving on to what's currently happening in the UK and in Ireland, they currently do not have a positivity rate in their community of 30%. Their hospitals are currently not acting under crisis standards of care. Those important facts for me help guide my decision tonight. I do not believe our community will be here forever, but I think for the next 4 to 6 weeks, it will be very difficult for our community moving forward. I think we will have potentially children and family members of children who become ill, and I worry that they won't be able to receive the care that they deserve in our community. Moving beyond that to our mitigation strategy, social distancing. The UK and Ireland both talk about social distancing and the importance of during times of high community transmission. They also talk about quarantining, contact tracing, and testing. And if you take the time to read their opening plans, those three things alone are what they believe will help them be successful in keeping students in the classroom full time. And that's why I asked Dr. Hawker tonight, what are we doing about testing? We have opportunities for those students that wish to be tested, for those family members who wish to know whether or not their student has COVID-19. If they have an immunocompromised person in the home, we have access to this sort of testing. In those countries that we're all discussing that are not masking, they are voluntarily testing their students twice a week. They are recognizing outbreaks and they are dealing with them. They are quarantining students close contact exposures to COVID-19 in hopes that there's not widespread outbreak at their schools. I believe if we could implement more mitigation strategies, we also could go without masks when our positivity rate again declines to where it was in June and July. We have never seen this rapid of increase of cases in our community, not during the entire pandemic. And so tonight, my decision will be based not only on the masking piece, but I don't believe that our opening plan has any of the essential mitigation strategies to keep our students or staff safe and potentially puts our community members at risk.
It's always a challenge to follow a lawyer who has very well thought out thoughts and arguments, and I appreciate that. And Lisa's very articulate. Tonight, my no vote on this will be just based that I think we should follow just the evidence-based recommendations of Panhandle Health, the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, Kootenai Health, American Academy of Pediatrics, the CDC, and others. I was asked earlier this week if I thought we should just mask for the next 2 years, and if that should be what I thought and believed, and it's absolutely not what I think and believe. I think a short-term, temporary mask policy would help our community right now get through this hurdle that that key doctors and healthcare workers in our community right now are asking us to put in place. And COVID is going to have lasting and rippling effects in our community, and our schools are not separate and apart from our community. Schools are the center and the heart of our town. The kids are the center and the heart of our community, and each of us wants our kids in school as much as possible. And when I hear that already there's 168 students that are out because of COVID, and I wonder again about the quality of their education that they're receiving being out, I wonder, can't we try and reduce the number of those kids that are even out? And if masking is one layer of that, I'm not convinced that our reopening plan here goes far enough, even with hand washing right now, or some of the things that were on here. Are we doing each of the other mitigations aside from masking? Are we doing them to the best of our abilities? And that's not there's a lot on our teachers. There's a lot on our kids. And I want to see us do the other pieces then. If masking's not going to be part of it, then can we do the other layers better and stronger?
Chair Brumley, may I comment for just 1 second? I think I would just be remiss to not share. There's a lot of conversations about mitigation strategies and what may and may not work and things that we can and can't do. And I just want to make sure that the board as a whole is very clear. I believe we're doing as best as we can with the given specific circumstances. I'll review with you here briefly a few of the mitigation strategies, and also just to let you know, we're monitoring this closely. I would rather watch football probably than the screens that I watch as I'm trying to stay up to date on current scenarios. And I think it's just important to recognize that even though we have these really alarming numbers that we currently have today, we've been in school 4 days, 5 days counting today. The likelihood of that spread occurring and generating those numbers by us opening our doors at school last Tuesday is very slim. Those kids came in contact or parents or whatever reason prior to school starting. So that's why it's really important that as a community we own this, and as a community we do our very best not to send kids that are sick to schools. But to just touch base on a few things that I know I've already shared with you as well, but I just don't want a perception in our community that we're not doing anything. I really feel like we are doing a good fair amount. As you've already alluded to, we do have testing available for anybody that wants it. I think that's a big step. Naturally, we're encouraging hand washing. We've got sanitation machines, all like you had last year in your schools. In our offices, we're trying to keep our staff as safe as possible. We have plexiglass dividers in many places in our schools to specifically provide that safety. We have a heavy-duty disinfectant that's applied to all of our classrooms that requires it to sit on the surfaces for 30 minutes. Last year, we asked our teachers to do disinfectant between every class. This year, we're putting that heavy-duty disinfectant in all of our classrooms. Our custodians are doing marvelous work to get that accomplished every night. And then our teachers are stepping up and doing things that normally I don't think teachers would love to always do, and that is they're cleaning those desks off with a disinfectant in the mornings as they start their school. So we feel like our classrooms are very clean. Of course, we've increased our air filtrations in our schools. With our buses, we have a very heavy-duty bus sanitation process that takes place twice a week, every Tuesday and Saturday. We are totally spraying down the buses. That gets into all the little cracks and seams and everywhere and all the seats and windows to try to keep everything as sanitary as possible. We have hundreds and hundreds of ionizers in our classrooms and our portable units, and then as I've already mentioned, we've increased our airflow in everywhere we can. We've opened up our air handlers. If Mr. Voller were here, he could probably go into a whole lot of other strategies and things that we have done in our facilities from this last year that we're carrying on to this year. So I just want to make sure that the board is aware of some of the strategies that we're doing and the best that we can.
Well, there's a motion and it has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We will have an amendment to the reopening plan that states we strongly recommend masking, but they are not required at any Coeur d'Alene School District facilities. Well, I don't think there's any further on the reopening plan, is there, folks? Okay. Then, I turned myself off. Moving to our next agenda item is our blended learning framework revision.
And that would be Mr. Seth Denniston. He's working his way up.
Good evening, Chair Brumley, members of the board, Superintendent Hawker. This is a relatively quick topic, but in your packets you'll find an updated blended learning framework. As you might remember, this was created last year with input from our teachers, administrators, a few parents, and we created this in light of our status last year. The edits are mostly removals at this point, just updating it, making this plan more evergreen. It does include some expectations for our teachers, such as using Schoology as our learning management system, as well as some expectations around communication using Schoology as well. So most of the edits, though, again, are not additions. They're just removals of things that no longer made sense with this school year. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Anybody have questions?
No.
And I don't see a motion. That's what I thought. Well, one of you gets to make it
I
up.
can craft one. I make a motion to approve the blended learning framework as presented. The update.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Seth, very much for your time. All right. Our next agenda item, the Continuous Improvement Plan for 2021-22. I'm not, who's presenting?
Back to Dr. Nelson.
All right, Dr. Nelson.
I'm sorry you get me twice in a night. Chair Brumley, Superintendent Hawker, and members of the board, the Idaho State Department of Education requires us to approach you and the community annually on what is called the Continuous Improvement Plan. This is a plan that is to be reviewed and posted on our district website before October 1st. And a copy of this plan for the 2021-2022 school year is available in your packet in draft form. For the past several weeks, our instructional core has been reviewing assessment data, graduate outcomes, and we've also incorporated much of the information that we've seen in our school's individual learning plans, as well as solicited public input for this. And the plan was also provided in our draft assessment newsletter, which received about 12,000 views within the district. Specifically, in front of you this evening, you'll see goal areas for the Idaho Reading Indicator, the Idaho Standards Achievement Tests, or ISAT, goals around measuring literacy and intervention, as well as our plans for college and career preparedness. At this point, I'd love to stand for any questions that you have, but we do request action to make sure that we meet the state deadline.
Dr. Nelson, I just had a question on the 2020-2021 targets. So is that what we performed, or are those just targets? Because I see it like the four-year cohort graduation rate is 100%, and then this year we're hoping for 100%. Did we have 100% graduation rate?
I would love to say that we had 100% graduation rate. You'll notice the column header says targets.
Okay.
And our target every year for our graduation rate is 100%. This last year as a district, we were just around 93 or 92%. So our goal is that every one of our students graduates on time within that 4-year plan. So that goal remains there as a target.
It would be helpful in the future if we had, how we did this year as we make our goals for next year, at least so that I know you guys go over them, but the board can't see that.
Correct.
And I'm sure in past presentations we've been given that data, but it would help for this purpose moving forward if we could actually visualize that, maybe on a separate addendum. Because my question would be then for the students who were proficient on 8th grade math, ISAT, we're only hoping for 80% target. Is there, what is your guys' rhyme or reason for picking your targets?
We actually looked at trend data over the past several years. We actually did look at the performance of our students along the way and created that goal based off of that. The form that you see in front of you this evening is actually the template from the Idaho State Board of Education, and in the past they did include some longitudinal data, and I agree with you. In this particular form, it doesn't help us. When we did send this draft plan out, I don't know if you saw it in your email itself, but it did have, for example, graduation rate, how we've performed for the last 4 years, and then it asked our community, what do you think our goal should be? So we did really try to think through that, and that was the same process we used in instructional core to come up with our goals.
Perfect, thank you.
My pleasure.
Well, Dr. Nelson, I just wanted to comment on it's page 11,
okay, on
our high school seniors applying for post-secondary institution, our FAFSA. And I just appreciate the continued ability to go above where we've been. I know that, particularly with going up to 70% on those who apply to at least one institution, I think continuing to raise those goals is great. And so I just wanted to comment. I noted that, and thank you.
Absolutely, and I will have to give a lot of credit to our high school administrations and our college and career coordinators. They are hounding that data, and because they definitely see that as soon as we provide a graduate diploma to our students, we need to have confidence that they know where they're going next, and that does help us build that confidence. So thank you. I will pass that along.
Well, seeing no other comment, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the continuous improvement plan for 2021-2022 as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Policies for action. We had two last month. Our mental health consent form and our public participation in board meetings. We should break these down. And so, Dr. Hawker, do you want to talk about the first one? Or did you have somebody else?
No, Chair Brumley, I guess certainly up for an opportunity to answer any questions that the board may have in regards to that first policy. You can see there the recommended changes that are redlined and the comment sections there. The public comments received by the district agreed to remove, I'm trying to read this here, it's a little small for me, to remove the managed only by nurses, as counselors, school psychologists, and social workers tend to make the referrals. The district's blue lined those attached forms. Keith, are you prepared to maybe answer a question? Yes. Let's have Keith come on up.
You might go up there and nobody asks you a question, but.
Right.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Orchard on the consent form?
Oh, come on, somebody's got to have a question.
I don't have a question on this because we talked about it last month, but
Okay.
I hope we didn't make Keith stay here for that.
Oh.
Seriously.
Okay. Do we want to do a joint motion on the two policies, or do we want to set them apart? Set them apart? Okay. Do I have a motion then on the 3505F and F2 and 35? Yeah. I think it's just those.
I will make a motion to approve 3500F and 3500F2 as presented.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. And that moves us into our next policy. Then, Dr. Hawker, do you want to start with this one?
I would be happy to. Next policy is 4105P, the public participation at board meetings. That policy was presented a month ago for the board's consideration to focus the input from community members during the community input public forum or public speaking time to just be focused on the agenda items on the agenda so that we can continue to as we've shared in the past, you generally take a couple months to review policies and to make decisions, and I think it's important to continue to receive the public input in regards to those comments. But I also think that reframing those conversations to be specifically focused on the board agenda at hand would be very appropriate, and be able to avoid several situations that we've been able to observe over the past several months.
I'll comment on this one. Dr. Hawker, I appreciate you bringing this idea forward in the community forum that we held a couple weeks ago, and I think it is important that we find meaningful ways to engage with our constituents, our parents, our community members, leaders, to have open dialogue and back and forth dialogue. And I think we probably learned something from that last meeting, and we'll kind of continue to fine tune that. So I appreciate the intent of this edit. I just am reluctant to go down that path at this point until we've kind of perfected or we've come up with that alternative format, or how are we going to have better two-way communication with our constituents. I did some looking over the weekend because we had a lot of comment, and most of the comment was against this change. And I looked, Post Falls School District is the only school district in the northern region that currently operates under that proposed procedure where you can only comment on agenda items. And they leave a little wiggle room in there. It says, but we'll try to accommodate you if we can, or something to that effect. But Kootenai County, the city of Coeur d'Alene, the city of Hayden, and the city of Post Falls all allow public comment on any item as long as it's related to the business entity or the taxing entity. And so while I realize there's no obligation for us to take public comment except at a fee, I believe it's a fee hearing or the budget hearings are the only two places we're statutorily required to take public comment. I think, for me at least, until we fine-tune an alternative format, I can't support the change right now. So I do believe it's long-term, it makes some sense and may help streamline these board meetings. I think tonight's not too bad, but when we've hit 4-hour board meetings, after about hour 2.5 or 3, the conversation gets pretty poor, I think, in the dialogue. So I appreciate the intent to get these board meetings under control as far as the time length. But for me, I'd like to see us work on the format a little bit more before we revisit this. And I think right now people have a lot to say to us. So I'd hate to deny them an opportunity to say it.
Well, I appreciate the intent, which is partially to help our time that and we've talked about this as far as the time that we spend in meetings. I don't think the timing on this is right. I'd like to see our whole year laid out as far as, at which quarter and kind of dates already, kind of like as we set our calendar year for our board meeting, here's our calendar year for our, community forums or whatever. And so until we get to that point where we actually have very clear opportunities to say to the community, come to this forum, I'd prefer not to. The timing on this for me right now isn't there.
I just want to say I appreciate the work on it. I think it's something that we should move to in the future if we can create a system where community members can give feedback. And I think administration primarily and the board can dialogue, because I think what's missing in these public comments as I'm looking through what we received tonight is there's so much misinformation that the board does not have the opportunity to respond to. And so I guess I'm asking that we make a concerted effort to get back to some of these allegations, because some of them are very serious. And month after month we sit here and we are not able to say anything, even though we know it is not true. And so I think if there's a theme that's emerging, that we're seeing misinformation after misinformation being presented in 3 minutes and the board is sitting here silently, that is damaging to the work that we're doing. And so I would like the opportunity, for us to follow up with these community members. They're giving us their name, they're giving us their address, and let's provide some resources for them if there are concerns that are continuing to show up every single month. Otherwise, I feel like we're just kind of spinning our wheels. Maybe that's, again, with the community forum that's specifically targeted towards some of the concerns that are being expressed. I know the equity framework is going to be worked on as a committee, and I appreciate that effort, but it seems month after month we continue to hear allegations against this district that are not true, and I worry that if we don't respond to them or we don't have the opportunity to respond, they slowly become true. So
I guess I would echo what Trustee May has just said, in that I feel that the comments that came in on this policy were about entitlement, and that I have a right to come to your board meeting and tell you what I want to tell you. I appreciate that every individual in this community has the right to tell this board how they feel about certain topics. I don't disagree with that at all. What is not understood is that technically you don't have a right to come to this board meeting and tell us what you think. And so this board, out of its sense of duty and out of its sense of wanting to hear from the public, has continued to keep public comment open in this fashion. It didn't have to do it tonight. It didn't have to do it last month. But we care. We really do. We genuinely care. And you may not believe it, but we read every email that comes in. We don't have time to respond to everyone. Some that are very specific to a particular trustee as a question by a constituent within that zone is probably going to get answered by that individual trustee. But it is not an accurate statement that we don't respond to emails. And it's not an accurate statement that you have a right, you're entitled to be here and tell us what you think. None of us disagree that we want your voice heard and we want your opinions heard. And so I do support revisiting this at a later date when there is a better forum, a better way for us to be able to communicate with all of you. It is hard, especially with what I do, to not be able to respond, to not be able to say, well, here's how I feel about it, or this is what I think in terms of that comment, or here's what I know, kind of like we were able to do a little bit at the forum with Katie Groutman being there and being able to respond to some of the comments, Keith Orchards being there and being able to respond to some of those comments. We just can't do that in this forum. And so at least tonight with the ones that were made on the reopening plan, you can hear us and we can talk about those comments, but we can't say anything about Portrait of a Graduate tonight. We can't say anything about the equity framework. And so I want to have that opportunity to be able to interface in that way. So I appreciate Dr. Hawker's comments. I appreciated the overwhelming response to no, we want to keep talking to you. And so I certainly would also support maybe looking at something like this down the road at a better time for this community and when we have better tools in place. So do I have a motion or any further comment? I guess I don't want to, you don't have to end with me.
I had one more quick question. Maybe Dr. Hawker can help, or maybe Ms. Town can help. You know, when we see, you know, the same community members coming with the same concerns, can we get back to them? I mean, can we provide them information? Because we can do that. We might not be able to respond up here in the moment, but we can provide answers to their questions. And I know it's more work for your staff, but I think there are some themes emerging that these people deserve answers, and I want them to get the right information. So until we have a forum set up where we have more administration available to answer questions or more board members, is there a way, you know, if it's 9 people that give their time, that we can get back to them with some sort of response? It may not be lengthy, but at least it's an acknowledgement that they were here, we heard what they're saying, and we're providing them the information that they want. And so they don't have to feel as though they have to public records request. We're not hiding anything. Our curriculum and all of our resources are always open to the public, and maybe we can point them in the right direction where they can locate that resource or that piece of the curriculum. I think that would be helpful and a step in the right direction.
Chair Brimley and Trustee May, if I may, I would agree, and I think where I overcalculated and I over-aired during our last public forum, that was I didn't want to create a situation where we brought the community in to dialogue and then have central office, myself, and all of our directors and central office staff spend the entire night talking to them to educate the community in regards to the couple board meetings I'd already attended and heard, you know, questions, and again, right back to your misinformation and not being able to share that out. So in that last session, we were very strategic in wanting to continue to hear more input. And unfortunately, with time constraints as it is, doesn't matter if that meeting would have been 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, at some juncture has to come to an end. And we certainly that night had very little opportunity, although some, but very little opportunity to provide this. I think in our next attempt, we're going to try to find some middle ground there so that we can continue to receive the questions and the dialogue, but to also make sure that we are able to provide that factual information. That's the challenge, of course. You know, we're being as responsive as we can to the requests that come in to us, whether it's individually or collectively, and the comments that we hear. We're trying to also, in general, when we hear general themed kinds of questions, we really feel like that's a good opportunity to provide answers to the entire community. So we're posting that information, making it transparent on district websites and other communication, you know, avenues, whether it's as simple as sending home in building level communications or whether it's posted at the district. So it really just goes back to that communication strategy and really the intent and focus that I believe we need to provide in this district to really get back to the great things that Coeur d'Alene School District's been doing in the past. And that is to really focus on that collaboration approach. And that's why we are actively putting together various other committees to help look at things. We're receiving an incredible amount of community input and desire to want to be part of those kinds of things. And I think that forms a great base for this collaboration. So we'll continue to go in that direction.
I think perhaps, and unfortunately I wasn't able to attend that last one, but you know, where we have some big comments, and like it's been said, there's been, you know, themes of things that are concerns, whether it's social emotional learning or profile the graduate, that you know, maybe it makes sense to focus one of these forums on 1 or 2 topics. So it's not jumping all over the board. Granted, there's people who have questions that are all over the board, but it seems like by and large it's in those areas, and so maybe if we're tackling some of those first, may be helpful.
And maybe we start with the big picture first, which is because most of our frameworks right now come out of Portrait of the Graduate. So if we started with some, what does that really mean? What does that really look like? Maybe some back history on it. Because when Portrait of a Graduate was approved was right about the time that COVID was starting in our community. So there was a lot for lots of families to be really focused on during that time. And when those frameworks were approved as well, the district was still doing their work and moving things ahead, but there was a lot for families to really be focused on during that time. So starting there with our plan and then working out from there would be helpful.
I'll make a motion to table. Is that what we'd like to do, Ms. Town? Probably. Okay. Well, we already approved the other one, right? Yeah. I'll make a motion to table 4105P.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're getting close, folks. On to information, an update on the online learning and magnet school planning.
Ms. Groutman.
Good evening, trustees. I know you were hoping and expecting to hear from Principal Brian Kelly tonight, but he couldn't be with us, so I have some of his remarks to share, and then I can stand for some limited questions. So tonight he's sharing on 2 points. One is our online partnership with IDLA, and then the second is a magnet school update. In regard to IDLA, the registration deadline for the online school partnership with IDLA was Friday, September 3rd. In all, we had 166 students register and enroll in the IDLA full-time partnership, with 102 secondary students and 64 elementary students registered. More than half of the secondary students came from the high schools, with about 33 students from CHS and 40 from Lake City. Dalton had the most elementary students, with 14 registered. The majority of families listed health concerns or concerns with COVID protocols as their reason for requesting attendance with IDLA. Mr. Kelly has been leading up this program and communicating with families, along with Noelle Osicki, a part-time counselor at Woodland, who has also been allocated some hours to work with our full-time IDLA students. Brian and Noelle have been working with families and IDLA to create full-time schedules for all students and field any questions they may have. On Wednesday, September 8th, they, along with IDLA staff, held online open houses for both elementary and secondary to provide more information for families and students. Secondary IDLA classes started today, September 13th. Elementary classes started with live orientation this week and then live instruction each morning starting the week of September 20th. Both levels go until the end of the IDLA semester, which is January 14th, at which time families can transition back to their home schools if desired. And then as for the magnet school, Becky Miller, Katie Grotman, and Brian have been planning next steps with the magnet school. He has met with Cabinet to update us on plans for this great opportunity for students to be part of a project-based learning school that is focused on this community. In addition to, future work includes monthly meetings with the Cabinet, regular board. He hopes to regularly update the board on progress, at least one workshop to understand project-based learning better, and one will be coming up soon with Cabinet. PD opportunities from various project-based schools, meeting plan with key stakeholders, including Jeff Voller, Katie Ebner, and Eric Davis to create a timeline of key components. Working directly with One Stone for school startup training and support. A $500,000 grant over 5 years from the Albertsons Foundation, and working with state representatives and Idaho State Department of Ed representatives on mastery education. And now I'll stand for questions.
Katie, an easy question. If students have chosen into IDLA, when is it a semester that they can choose back to go back to their home school?
That's correct, yes.
I got a tough one. Actually, I'm not going to direct it to you. I think one thing we've heard through IDLA, and I know you're aware of this because I think you and I had some individual conversations about it, but there is a segment of our community that desires an online program, but would prefer to have a more local connection than IDLA. And perhaps not quite the blended model that the magnet school is looking at, where there would be some in-person interaction to go along with the online component. And so I just wonder if we can explore that, and if there's some opportunity there. We hear from time to time, and I know we have some students that travel from the Silver Valley, or I believe this to be true, or we have in the past, that have come for AP Spanish, or, that might be a bad example, but AP Chemistry or something, because they just, in a school of a few hundred, they can't get the numbers to offer that course, and so they've come here, and I just wonder maybe there's a way to offer some of those, courses.
Yes, Chair
in a
Brumley.
pure online format that's managed by the Coeur d'Alene School District.
Yes, Chair Brumley and Trustee Marshall, yes, that we're going to look at that. We are in our 5th day of school. We wanted to kind of see how many numbers we had in the request for IDLA, and that number sits around 165 or 6, somewhere in there. And so pretty decent numbers as far as the need. But we also know last year when you self-performed, you had 1,000 plus students interested in that. And that's obviously because I think our teachers can do a really good job. I'm very familiar with the IDLE Digital program. I know we can do better than that program even and provide those opportunities. So it's something that we're going to take a look at. Obviously, it's a lot of work, and our cabinet's very well aware. It's a lot of work to put together the magnet school and get all those details out. And we're also contemplating another startup of an online school. Again, the good news is the cabinet's experienced that before on quick turnaround time last year. So we really think we can take a good look at that and determine where best it might. How many staff members might it take, and how best we could potentially organize that ourselves. So we will look into that, and we'll bring you back information throughout the fall and the spring months as we prepare for next year.
Well, it looks like you got off the hook easy.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thanks, Katie. Okay, the last item on our agenda tonight is policies for information, which there's a lot. From what I can tell, everything is on there because it's a recommendation by ISBA to update or clarify. And so, is there any comment or questions?
I'll make a comment. I agree with your assessment. It appears to be pretty straightforward ISBA comments. Given the fact that we're going on hour 3, or we've passed hour 3 here, and the number of policies, I don't think it makes sense to go through them policy by policy. And we're going to see them again next month for action after we have public comment. So I have nothing on these. I didn't see any concerns with the changes.
Ms. Town, are we finished with our initial update of all policies, though? So that's exciting, so we should celebrate that, yeah. 10 years. Oh, wow. Well, congratulations.
Okay, so these policies will all be out for public comment for the next 30 days. And so the board will review those comments. If folks have concerns with the ISBA's recommended changes, please share. And oh, did we? Oh, the next item, thank you. The next item is just our calendaring of events. And our next regular board meeting will be October 4th. And other than that, there are no other meetings to be had.
And Chair Bermley, just to be clear too as well, the board had a hold spot, I guess, on this upcoming Wednesday as a board training workshop, and that has been postponed at this moment, and we'll get back to you as to when we can put that together this next time. So just didn't want anybody to show up Wednesday at my office for that training because there won't be one.
And that's in large part due to a lack of personnel to do the training.
That's right.
Our people didn't pan out, neither one that was going to come talk about governance, so we don't have that. So, all right, everyone. With that, unless anybody has anything else, we are adjourned. Thank you.